Oh, there's the...
I'll wait until things get passed out there. It's been a really big week for the PLEX neighborhood. We've had a chance to be part of the Rochester Regional Community Design Center's gallery display, and they just brought in a speaker from Buffalo yesterday named Erin Crowley, who was talking about neighborhood revitalization in ways that are similar to what we're doing here in Rochester, and gave us some very good encouragement. And it gave us a chance then to have a session at the Gandhi Institute after a breakfast session, and we talked about the idea of what we call the PLEX Campus. And to explain that, basically PLEX is the idea of the Plymouth Exchange Neighborhood Association, campus being the acronym for Community and Multiversity Project for Urban Sustainability. So we gave a very brief elevator speech. It was an 8-word speech and then a 15-minute explanation of what the acronyms meant. So the what they call an elevator speech, you got to get your idea across really quickly and then have the person remember it when you leave. So the PLEX elevator speech is PLEX Campus, Steam Heat Center, and Saints Be Praised. And what that boils down to is, again, PLEX is the Community and Multiversity Project, but we're trying to be able to bring health to our neighborhood, and a healthy neighborhood's got a healthy school. So for the PLEX campus, the area includes where number 19 school is, where the rec center is right here. This is part of the PLEX campus area, but also the area along Plymouth Avenue where the Gandhi Institute is, and it goes all the way down to the river area there. So the PLEX campus is comprehensive, but it's also reflective of what is meant to be a healthy community. And our idea of getting Rochester better is to get better, perhaps on a quadrant by quadrant basis, and by starting with PLEX, we want to be able to offer some models that will be helpful for the entire city. So the first model is one based on the healthy school being a neighborhood school. And we're responding to the challenge that Superintendent Vargas made last November in terms of having local universities and colleges incorporate or adopt or actively participate in the operation of public schools. And so we are responding to Superintendent Vargas' challenge by saying number 19 school is the school we want the University of Rochester to take on. The University of Rochester has the Warner School of Education and Human Development. What they don't have is a campus school with youngsters on the campus in the presence of students who are then the role models to them. So not having that at the U of R, then one of the nearest schools then is number 19 school. There already is a relationship there with a reading program, and the idea is to let's expand it much, much further, much more intensely, and have the direction be research-driven in terms of best practices. We've had a good conversation last week with Principal Eva Thomas. She explained what she would like to see have happen. She wants to be able to have a greater retention of her staff. She wants to be able to have stability in terms of the program services for their youth there. And the STEM model that's talked about very often, the science, technology, engineering, and math, she would like to see that expanded to being a STEAM model, the letter A being arts, athletics as part of the program. And at number 19 school, you're probably aware that they have the Strings for Success program there and some other enhancement programs. So our goal is to have the University of Rochester adopt the number 19 school as part of our PLEX campus plan. Now, the second part of the campus plan is what we call the STEAM heat element. Also involves the focus on health and wellness, not just for the number 19 school kids, but also intergenerational for here at the rec center. So it's the health aspect is wellness, but also fitness and also team sports. We want to be able to improve the expression skills for the students at the number 19 school who are very weak in their reading skills and their writing skills. So that's the letter E for the expression. A for heat is, again, the athletics, team sports, and T for tutorial, to get to that focus to have the competency in reading skills by the 3rd grade. So STEAM heat revolves around the idea of the number 19 school being improved. The idea of the center actually grows out of the concept of things we talked about with Eva Thomas, the principal. She pointed out that there needs to be more of a neighborhood-based availability of services. Part of the E for the center is to look at the environmental improvement of the area around the campus there where the students are, but also the larger PLEX neighborhood, which has the riverfront area, which is also the vacuum oil brownfield area. So we see as part of an education program would be environmental as part of the science, technology, engineering, and math. But an element that really became clear to us after talking with Eva Thomas is the need for trauma services. We have in our west side, southwest side area, we have the urgent care center at the former St. Mary's Hospital. But what we really need here is a trauma care center. So many of the young persons at number 19 schools may be going through a grieving process, or maybe separation from family members, and some of the acting out behavior we're seeing perhaps could be addressed at a quicker stage by having services available within this PLEX campus model here. Also, the idea for the center concept is the idea of reclamation, reclaiming our housing, reclaiming our building materials, the clothing and furniture items, try to make them into an entrepreneurial type of a program, but also to reclaim our local history. So part of our PLEX process is to honor the riverfront history that we have. It's very, very unique. The other element of what we call the Saints Be Praised part of the aspect is that we look at the PLEX campus as being an incubational job skills development program site. We'd like to have happen within our PLEX campus the actual training and education for real-world careers. And the thing that we've been talking about in our PLEX neighborhood, and you've been hearing tonight here, also appeared in today's paper. You have an article here that appeared in today's paper about the program that's at the State School in Industry, where young persons there are learning high-tech art. And the idea is to be able to welcome these young persons back to our community, but to welcome them back to real-world job opportunities. So part of the PLEX campus concept is to be able to develop an aquaculture and aquaponics location in the Plymouth Avenue area. And there'll be a chance to look at these young persons coming back from ministry in a very different light, not as juvenile delinquents, but as saints. These are specially trained persons, background in agriculture, not just agriculture and soil, but agriculture with the aquaponics and aquaculture. We want them to be instructional, we want them to be nutritional experts, so that they're working on what is called basically soil to foil, soil being the growing process, whether it be growing in soil or growing in aquaculture, but then the idea of foil, food preparation. So the idea is that students who be at this aquaponics center, they also get a chance to work on nutritional skills and food preparation skills to give them basically like a dual preparation, agriculture and nutritional skills. They need to be supported. Anybody working in an aquaculture center should be receiving some type of payment for their work there. They also need support to transportation, also counseling services, but also support in terms of pointing them in the direction of continuing education and getting certified. So the idea of the Saints Be Praised, it has to have a model to it. It's got to be a business model, it's got to be entrepreneurial, it's got to be sustainable. So for the element of praise, the idea is it has to have a public safety element to it there. One of the best ways to reduce crime is to crowd out the conditions that lead to it. Let's replace the bad by putting in the good. So the idea is let's create the job opportunities to reduce the need for illegal activities to make money. We want this to be replicable. We want the PLEX model to be copied throughout the other quadrants in the city. So by having an aquaponics and aquaculture center, we're not talking so much about bricks and mortar, but more in terms of perhaps a hoop house style structure, or as has been discussed today, possibly one of the basement style aquaponics approaches. We want this to be an accountable program, so that there needs to be proper business practices followed there. We want it to be an incubational type of a thing. For our PLEX planning, it's important for us in the years ahead to have in our neighborhood incubation opportunities for ideas perhaps from the University of Rochester being tried out in our neighborhood with their own neighbors being employed as part of this incubation type jobs there. We want it to be sustainable. The goal is to be as self-funding as possible, be able to have the food going at the Aquaponics Center, then be able to help generate an income, but also help to pay for some salaries. It's got to be energy efficient. That's why we're working with the colleges to try to learn from them better ways to do things. And it needs to be developmental. You start with the infrastructure, but then you have to have the agriculture concept. You're growing your food, but you're also going to be processing it. You're going to be marketing it, and you're going to be able to have food service jobs created from it. So the last thing basically is just the positive perceptions. And so for the bottom again, for the elevator speech, it's the idea of the PLEX campus. We want it to be a STEAM heat center, meaning that the school is going to be much more vibrant, but also the Saints Be Praised, that we want to have the youth come back to our community, become contributors. So that's basically where we stand now. We'll be having conversations soon with Dr. Barassi at the University of Rochester at the Warner School of Education and Human Development. So to talk with Eva Thomas at number 19 school. The next step then is to talk with the Dr. Barassi of the Warner School And the next step is to talk to the superintendent of schools, then Dr. Boland-Vargas. So that's where we stand. So we're making progress.
John, a question about the U of R in 19. I find it interesting, because I've been working in 19 for a number of years, and we're in a couple different hats. The U of R has not been it's not to say they haven't been a player in 19, but I don't see them as a big player. They're absolutely across the river, there's no question about it. But Nazareth, we've been working long before I even came on board with 19. Nazareth has poured in tens of thousands of dollars into 19. They have a school of education. I guess my question is to you is why the U of R versus Nazareth with a track record at 19 to be able to do what needs to be done. And you're 100% correct, there's a lot to be done there. And we need to find the best way to be able to achieve that. And we haven't found it. But you're thinking the U of R is the way to go?
Proximity is the big factor for that. One of the points that that Eva Thomas presented was that she wants to have an expanded day program, which also includes Saturdays. They want to have the ability to rely on the U of R shuttle bus system to be able to work back and forth, shuttling across the river. Yes, there is involvement from Nazareth College to a greater degree and with perhaps greater expenditure, but there is currently it's called, I think, a We Care reading program, or a care program called About Reading. It has between 30 to 40 students involved there. But what Dr. Thomas would like to have is to have her staff at her school to be able to go over to the River Campus School there, to be able to learn best practices. They want to do more expanded learning type programs there, but they're also looking for the role models. The ability to get more students and have it be a shuttle. This bridge here, the River Railroad Bridge, is a two-way bridge. Let's get our kids from number 19 school over to the campus there. They have a step team at number 19 school. They got fraternity and sorority step teams at the campus there. Performing arts on the stage there, music. So with the STEAM, you're not just talking about the River Campus, you're talking about the Eastern School of Music and also the Medical Center. So basically, it's based on likelihoods and proximities as to why you go for the U of R rather. And
you've talked to the U of R, or you have not talked to the U of R?
Sequentially, we needed to talk to Eva. We talked to her last week. Okay. We are now making arrangements for probably next week to talk with Dr. Raphael Barassi. And interestingly, it was the U of R who actually contacted PLEX to talk about this concept.
Okay.
But from the standpoint of the U of R, it traditionally had been an east side of the river school there. Rarely was there any congress or activity across to the west side. They're landlocked now, so you've now seen the Brooks Landing Bridge there. You have the Staybridge Suites Hotel, which is serving U of R purposes. You have a new parking lot just now being installed at the Plymouth Gardens area. That serves the U of R. At the Brooks Landing area, it's an 11-story high-rise just now being built. So it's now encroaching in our neighborhood. So let's take advantage of that concentration and density and go with what's most logical right now.
Okay. I think there might be something more too that we need to talk to, because at Nazareth we're starting to link up with our IT and move into 19, and maybe this is not. I'm just trying to get my head around this thing to understand what we want to support Eva and School 19 in the very best way.
Well, if I could just interject for a second, because I think we're talking about the same thing. It's multiversity. There may be a lead school, but we would not want to exclude Nazareth College or anybody else. So the idea is that let's come together. We're now at a very unique time in Rochester's history where the colleges are beginning to talk between and among themselves now. The information sciences of RIT benefit the University of Rochester Medical Center. So we're seeing some linkages.
Yes.
Let's just take another step further.
Okay. Yeah, before we get into the discussion, we have one thing that I wanted to pass out because we can discuss it in the same part of the meeting was the Cellar greenhouse, which was mentioned just a few minutes ago there. The thing that, oh, thank you. The idea came because I'd gotten an email from Judy Baker showing kind of a crude pit sort of greenhouse, and the fact that we have a lot of houses that are being torn down in the city from time to time. It seemed like we're throwing away perfectly good cellar holes that were exactly what you'd like to build in this pit greenhouse, to have it handy and neat and be able to put decent construction for the shelter on top of. So I threw this idea out, and there seemed to be some interest in it. And you were saying that you had looked at it and thought there was something that might be usable with some of the work that you're doing.
Yes, and thank you for inviting me today. I'm not sure how all the players fit together, but the more I become re-involved in community activity, the more I see people like you guys just stepping up, doing for the neighborhoods in our toughest of times. I'm a retired ombudsman for the state of New York, and I spent my life trying to resolve problems. And Kit asked at a meeting that I was at with Mr. Till was there as well. She said, "How do you feed a city?" And it's been bugging me for about a year now. But I think that I might have identified a way that might be able to help do that. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of challenges where you actually think about stuff that people don't even put in the parking lots when you're brainstorming, that sometimes lead to the best breakthroughs. And the paths that you get are kind of weird, but I've been through the, how do you excavate? It's very expensive to do, so then, well, maybe do Brownsfield. That takes forever, though, and they never clean it all up. And, although the EPA and the United States Department of Agriculture, have some projects about putting in aquaponics and hydroponics settings in Brownsfield, that, it still makes me itch a little thinking about it, so. Then, and connecting with Eleanor Coleman, she said, "Wow, John's got this great idea," and she sent me this very picture, and talking about, well, why waste the cellar holes? And if you could clean them up and clean them out, as you said, and maybe even use some of the pieces off of the demolished building, if you take it out properly first. Well, you got almost all the materials in this kind of structure. My own project involves geodomes, geodesic structures that Buckminster Fuller first came out with years ago, that they talked about actually seriously about putting a dome over the top of Houston in the first episode of Mega Engineering on Disney, right? Have you seen that?
I used to live in Houston. That's why I'm like, oh, you could capture a lot of heat there.
Oh my gosh. But with these geodomes and the venting, you can actually maintain your temperature just like in the space age stations of the Jetsons. But I don't think they'll ever do it because the structure's not stable until it's complete. And from what I heard, it might take 20 years to build it, and they're doing it to prevent the city from being devastated in a hurricane. I think they'll get another one in the next 20 years. I don't know. So anyway, but the concept opened up a lot of different ideas. There's a place called the Eden Project that you can see if you get Netflix, and you can get that series. They present the Eden Project in such an amazing way that under these structures you can recreate just about whatever kind of environment that you want. In Rochester being cold, and I spent some time in Buffalo, I'm thinking, okay, these things are great, but if you really want to do it right so it's stable, don't just do a heat exchanger by running a pipe through the ground 5 feet below. Dig a hole, get in there, and then take advantage of vertical hydroponics, aquaponics. Mm-hmm. And if you can really exploit the vertical nature of this stuff, which I believe you can, I believe I found a way to do that, at least conceptually, I don't believe I have the best way to do it yet. It's early in that process. But this is really exciting because now as aquaponics comes around, hydroponics comes around, feeding people come around, the question we all have with this aquaponics and urban agriculture stuff is that most people that are doing it are kind of starving though, there's no real money in doing it on the scales that we're talking about. It's really hard on a standalone business. So I'm thinking, if you want to do a sustainable business, how do you really do it? How do you set up something like this where you can make money? Well, first, don't count on selling the food for the business to support itself. You know, in the gold rush days, there was always sayings about, you know who made the most money? It was the people who sold the picks and the shovels to those fortune diggers, right? Sure. So I'm thinking, well, geez, residentially, people want to do more of this stuff for themselves, much like Mr. Till's church that he had done there. But they don't really know exactly how to do it, how to get into it. So I'm thinking, well, what if we had working demonstration models in residential size and people that could build them or install them or tend them with gardeners? I'm thinking, holy camole, geez. I went to industry, saw the setup they had, and I working with a man to connect with Tim Whiter to see if maybe we could take advantage of this upcoming city grant, maybe to train those guys to build some of these systems and then do a test market at Eastview Mall with some really kind of eye-catching kind of things where folks got lots of money, might be able to buy these kind of things. And if, as a business model, this thing kind of evolves, then you still take the same techniques and same technologies, but you can make them available to the hardest parts of the city, and grow food out of them. You know, there's refugee programs, for example, that are out there that would love to tend something like this. Put a geodome, make it cute on the outside so the neighbors don't get mad, make it pretty, and grow food inside it and have them farm it as a family, community, and provide and create a CSA and a variety of things. There's a lot of different offshoots off of this. Still, where does the money come from to make all this happen? I was recently, they did $8,000 worth of work on my house, a program called Empower New York. It's a free program for people that qualify, that 60% of the median income for the area, about $26,100 for a family of one right now. And Erin at Push in Buffalo is doing is exactly that. They're training kids to do the Empower work. They're going out and they're weatherizing these houses. They're making the housing stock free for low-income people, and they're training and paying kids to get work. I don't want to hijack your whole meeting. No. I get really excited about this because once I found out where can the money come from to do really good stuff, well, all the other pieces start falling into place, especially when you community like the folks that are sitting at this table. You take an educational focus to a whole new level, though. I want to tell you, I think it's very cool. So my role is I am building community. I am applying to enter into the CAMP program on tomorrow, actually.
The what program?
The Center for Urban Entrepreneurship that is part of the Rochester Institute of Technology's program with the new bank that they got downtown that they're going to run it out of there. They're kind of in temporary settings at the, they have lots of stuff they have to do before you can move in.
I'm passing out a flyer that talks about your program that you're talking about.
About you?
Yeah, I'm passing the flyer around.
That's excellent. They have a build capacity program, and I'm entering into that. And I believe that it takes community. No one person's going to be able to do this. But I believe that with the combination of city, state, federal, local, private sector, public sector, and people, that maybe this can get done. So, again, I'm Larry Burnette, and I'd like to join in on this particular facet of what you guys have going, because I think we can find some really nice things and do some wonderful things for people. If you really do this right, you can almost give the food away, give the vegetables away, give the fish away at the end of the day, because the business model does not rely on selling the produce in order to survive. So, but you really can't give food away because people don't value it. You'll find lettuce and fish all in the garbage cans on the streets and the light posts and stuff like that. So, but as close to free as you could give, that is my intention.
Larry,
Thank
do you know much about Growing Power, this organization in Wisconsin?
Growing Power.
Yeah.
No, but I'd like to. In fact, one of the things, I'm sorry, I mean to derail what you're saying. I met with D.T. Ogilvy, the dean of the CAMP.U.S, last summer with Enid, a sustainability expert for RIT, and they suggested that we have a charrette around people taking urban agriculture and taking it from where it is to a better place. However, we're going to get there. All the various people have a charrette around that. And what I did was I offered to maintain a database of interested players that are involved in doing some of this. So I set up a website. It's just like a stub right now, and I still have some things going on with it. But I would like to start collecting names and players that are involved in this. Get a blurb. I'll let people have like 4 free photographs and whatever kind of reasonable blurb that they want. I'll put it on the website, and then we can combine it around urban agriculture and energy, the 2 huge things they took off the consumer price index because it screws the numbers up so badly. Excuse my.
No,
I'm sorry. So if you could tell me that name again, I'll look into that.
Yeah, Growing Power
Growing Power.
in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
In
if you have any
Milwaukee?
questions. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's actually my birth town.
Really?
So I've been researching for probably 5 years. So if you guys have any additional questions, Erin Crowley, I've done a lot of research on it.
Okay.
As
Because,
well as-
I mean, they seem to have an incredible model.
It kind of depends what your goals are.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
So there's
Erin,
lots of.
is your email on all the distribution list of?
I didn't receive anything on this, but it's Erin, ERIN,
ERIN.
dot C, as in Charlie,
Uh-huh.
and then dot Crowley, CROWLEY, at gmail.com.
Erin.c.crowley at
Gmail.com. Mm-hmm.
.com. Okay. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah,
I'll do it really soon.
thanks. I'm not sure if you were here when I spoke, but we can get together later because I'm competing for an innovative food systems $100,000 grant due this Friday. So I've just put my business plan together. So I'm working with some Cornell agriculture PhD and graduate students for that. So it's very similar, and that would probably be a great circle.
I would love to connect with that circle. It sounds like too late to be involved with that particular grant.
No, we're looking, like, I believe in community. Yeah, I believe in community. It's not Digital Friday, and that's preliminary. Competition is in April, but the main purpose is that you have to have 50% student involvement. So, like, advisors are great, but, like, for the team portion, as long as we keep getting students, we can get more, professionals, but I need to match
The ratio's okay.
both, yeah.
Maybe I'd bring a student or 2 with me.
Yeah. And that's great.
John, in your new map of the PLEX campus there, you're including the food link properties. Has there been any look at whether those would be used for aquaponics?
There had not been a research into those buildings with regard to aquaponics because it was unclear as to what the status of those buildings would be. I just had the reintroduction of the food link buildings within the PLEX campus is because apparently there still is the ability now for the program that does recycling of furniture to use the building there. So that since that is occurring now, it suggests that perhaps additional programs of nature could take place. When there was research done initially for where could the aquaponics program go, there is a single-story warehouse area that has 7 loading docks width to it. That could be a wonderful area for aquaponic type projects as well. But we chose the area near the Gandhi Institute because of the proximity to the 19th school there.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. Yeah, because there are some big warehouse spaces, but unless everything is used and somebody's paying the heat for the building as a whole, it's going to be tough to get a...
The food link buildings do exist within the brownfield area so that they do face that cleanup effort there. So things done there would have to be very carefully monitored in terms of safety issues. Additionally, there have been some improper asbestos removal done in some of the buildings there. That has to be looked at as well.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, we did go into those buildings and we did look at that as a possibility for the hydroponics. Green Living Technologies did put in a fairly good size installation for growing walls within that building that you're talking about. but I won't go into all the details, but that it wasn't successful. At the time, we were talking with Tom Ferraro of Food Link. We came away and said that we didn't feel that it was a viable space for what we're talking about here. So the answer to your question is yes, we've done some research, we've been in those buildings. There has been an attempt to use it for urban growing, but right now, no, there doesn't seem to be any real interest.
Okay.
Unless you're interested. I don't think you should be.
Well, as an advisor.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah, I was, one of the things that led to the idea of doing the greenhouse in the cellar hole basically is the fact that it really avoids having to do a whole lot of heating because the earth basically insulates a lot of the surface area of the space, and hopefully we would need relatively little heating being added to it. You'd probably have to circulate air around to heat some ballast in the space so that at night it doesn't get too cold, but it should be fairly low energy requirement.
It's possible under a geodome that you may not need any heat external, any additional supplemental heat at all whatsoever. Winter, summer, and I believe that technology works in the deserts and in Buffalo at its worst.
Well, just around the corner at Harvest Time Church, we're in the basement, and we don't have any additional heat down there, and we're growing year-round down there, so it's not a big issue. If you're using big high sodium lights in that, they create quite a bit of heat in and by itself. The bigger issue, of course, is the energy consumption, and that's why we started to take a look at other alternative energies such as solar and those kinds of things. The other thing, Larry, is that, in fact, I was just in a luncheon meeting today, and there's reason to believe that there may be some money available, but what was being talked about was not just the basement, but you buy the house, and you turn the house into a hydroponics growing because of the square footage, not only just using the basement, which is great, and we've done that, and we can show that it can work, but we can use the whole house, and that may get some traction. It's still real early in some discussions with some financing people to take a look at that as a possibility. It started out small. In houses, you drop right into the neighborhood. You buy a house within the PLEX, and then look at just that community, and then, as you say, replicate something like that.
I wanted to piggyback that. I lived in China for a number of years, and so they don't have any welfare in China.
You're on your own.
Yeah, you're on your own. But they have a lot of really simple jobs. I mean, there are street sweepers with brooms. I mean, they're street sweepers. They sweep. That's it. And I always thought, what kind of jobs could people have that, could really provide self-worth, health, but they have to be really easy. And, maybe through these jobs you'd get access to better skills. And I think about easy things. Well, this is totally crazy, but I just want to put this out there because there might be some space in all these discussions. So with these structures, you're going to need to pump water. You're going to need to pump water out of these tanks up back through the beds,
That's right.
And so they're going to drain back into the bone. So that's some energy. And if you could get people like riding a stationary bike that pumps water. Now, we're not generating electricity because I guess there's a lot of energy loss in generating electricity on a bike. But if you were to just pump water
Seesaws too.
into big tanks, so that maybe it's not that it would need to constantly be going on, but at least getting it above where it needed to be and then draining through. So you might, John, when you wrote that article, you wrote about needing cameras and stuff to keep these places safe. But what if you just had these these little greenhouses or aquaponic culture centers or whatever you want to call them, people work there. You're not going to want to mess with the, you don't want to
Oh, yeah,
bite the
it's-
dog, bite the hand that feeds you. So if we just had these places be somewhere where the supervisors were coming out of industry, but some of the grunts were just, people who want jobs, and were able to then learn from the industry guys so that they could open up their own small greenhouses, using other abandoned houses. I mean, that would seem to really, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I think it would be really nice if we can have this basically spread around the city.
Yeah.
So that you bring a few people back that teach others how to do it. There are a lot of abandoned houses each year that get torn down. And that's one of the things that, I hope we can do. All of these schools you'd like to have them all in a PLEX Campus type interaction with local colleges and with, aquaponics and things that bring the community into involvement with the schools. And that was one of the thoughts with the cellar hole greenhouse. We got cellar holes popping up everywhere in the city, and you don't have to look far from any school to do that. There's also some, warehouses that you could fit something like that into near some of the schools. So we need to hopefully, get in touch with some of these schools and maybe talk about what they might like to get involved with. I mean, I don't want to be in competition with School 19, but all of them are in the same boat, that there's so much that could be done, and hopefully we can put an effort into all of them. But it would be great to see, one first example that proves the concept and the involvement.
Start with one.
Yeah.
Start with one.
All righty. What else?
A demonstration project. Are you proposing that a demonstration project be created? Is that what I heard?
Well, certainly there's a whole big ball of wax for the PLEX Campus, which includes the schools and the other things that John outlined. But certainly from the standpoint of an aquaponics facility, the sooner we have one working that kids from industry can come back to, that neighbors can see in action, I would think the better. And to be able to, one of the things that I was hoping that Annie can make it back today was I wanted to check with her, because they're supposed to be renovating this center in the next couple of years or so. And it would seem like, gee, if you're adding on to this building, can we maybe add on a space, maybe the size of this room, that could be a demonstration aquaponics with maybe some windows so that people in the conference room next door can look in and see it. So you may not want every kid in the center to come traipsing through the aquaponics center, but the more you can have that sort of facility be something that School 19 or other schools can come walking through the community center and see in action, the better it is, and the more it gives kids some hook into things that are possible that they might want to look at doing.
Like they did at the Harley School?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Chris Hartman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they did a wonderful design. I haven't seen it myself. I just hear accolades about. Ron, have you seen that? They're
A couple $1 million.
Speak of Annie, and she comes in. We were talking about you. See, you never want to leave one of these meetings.
Okay, it's all good.
Question we had for you. As you know, if you've looked through some of the meeting notes from the previous meeting, there had been hope of getting an aquaponics facility in that garage that's behind the Gandhi Center, but it's not available. And so it's going to be a question of where else do we find a place to do something like that. And the thought had crossed my mind, you're going to be renovating or adding on to this center. Has anybody thought of perhaps having a room, maybe the size of this, that would be kind of an aquaponics center that would serve as a teaching aid for the school or for other schools that want to come through the center, maybe have, you know, observation windows into it and have it be a teaching tool? Is that something that might be looked at?
That's a good thought. They haven't really begun the process, but they're going to be working with us and the community, asking for some of the input and some of the things we would like to see. So it's definitely is.
Okay. Yeah. Ask, nothing comes if you don't ask,
That's
right?
it. The
How
mouth
close are
that
the-
does not ask.
How close are those two properties that you showed on the link?
Well, on here, we're right now, right in this center, right there, and School 19 is right here, and the Gandhi Institute is right there, so,
Where was, you showed 3 sites, the web with the holes, the cellar hole.
Cellar, oh, that's up in this area up here. Unfortunately, I mean, there may be something, you know, I just did a little bit of looking in some of these streets here, and I didn't see any boarded up properties on Google Maps. And of course, Google Maps is always a year or two out of date, so, but, you know, there's so many good things going on in here that this is an ideal place to see something take hold, and if we can get an aquaponics facility that's near the school so that we can prove out the value that it might have to the school, then that's
So maybe that same pot of money that would maybe add on to this building might be able to support something like that? Is that what I heard you say?
yeah, it depends what pot of money we got. It's going to be a city-funded renovation, right?
Yes,
So-
and they haven't done anything on the center for a while, so they're looking at investing quite a bit of money. They haven't really said any figures yet, but there are going to be some meetings to find out what the neighborhood and what
Now,
the
the
peers.
school is doing renovation next year, or?
They're going to do, well, I think from what Ms. Thomas told me, this summer they're going to do some preliminary renovation, but they're going to close the school in the year 2015.
2015.
After that, yes, and then
Okay.
the center is going to close also, so they're just going to do major renovations.
So, you know, it's doing something where we're building something from scratch is a few years out, but if it could be done so close to the school, it would be a real nice plus.
You said you're looking for a vacant, or a boarded-up house in this?
Yeah, you got one?
There's one right next door to the house,
Oh, good.
but it's probably gonna be knocked down next summer, so.
That's what we want.
That's what well, if we're gonna do a cellar hole, and really,
I'll be right there.
ideally, you'd like to have, you know, have it planned or coordinated with whoever is going to be stepping in and using the cellar hole, so that, because there are a lot of issues we need to talk with the city on. If anybody has any insights into, could you open this thing?
I do know that the city person in charge of ultimately tearing down vacant structures has changed. It used to be Brent Gartwood, but he's no longer there. I don't know who the new person is.
Yeah,
Anything?
I don't know.
In terms
The-
of something who hasn't been back yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get on his case and find out who he is.
He hasn't been back yet?
He hasn't written me back. No, none of them have written me back.
Oh,
Nobody
you-
in the new administration has written me back
Oh,
about the church.
about that property that,
They're
yeah.
not very communicative.
well,
Uh-oh.
I didn't hear back from Lovely either, so don't feel bad.
No, I think there's
She's a little busy.
I think
Well,
there's
wait a
an,
minute, she can't be too busy for things that she's so in favor of.
I think some of the folks from, with the swag, should have a meeting coming up in the near future with the mayor on the, I think it's the 11th. Brian, you haven't said that? So maybe that's a good question to put to her in terms of doing that.
Yeah.